I got on a name shirt. So.
What's up, guys and gal? How's it going?
Hey.
Holy cow, we're live.
We're live. We're doing it live.
That word "live" means up there. So
we are doing it live. You know, we're doing it here first.
We're doing it live.
Yeah. Doing it live. Doing it here in the group first. So you know,
Sting's gonna play us out. Yeah.
so I can get all the kinks worked out here as an audio guy trying to do a little video on the back end here before we try to go worldwide.
Worldwide.
Audio guy trying to do a little video.
Wow, look at
Damn
that.
it, Kyle.
Inception. Kyle, you can't watch your own live stream, Kyle. Come on.
I saw my Mountain Dew tank top. I had to zip back up.
Samantha, what have you been up to?
A lot. It's been a really busy time for church work. But good. Doing a lot of streaming stuff. More streaming than I would maybe want to do, but that's the way of the world. But yeah.
Why don't you tell us about your podcast?
Just slide that graphic in.
That's right. Hey, not bad for an audio guy.
Wait, how quickly can you make those? Can you put like Queen of Streaming for her?
No, don't do that.
The Stream Queen.
Stream Queen. It was some ABBA in the background. So I have my podcast, the Church Sound podcast, that launched right at the end of February. I think I've got about 7 or 8 episodes out, and that's been going really well. It's been fun kind of developing like my style and getting comfortable with that format. It's a lot different than writing or teaching, or it's just like its own special weird thing. Editing can get a little bit tedious, but after spending like a week editing videos, I will happily just do podcasts. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've got a lot of really neat guests coming on and really important conversations that I think the church sound. Yeah, well, we were gonna do one, but then the event got canceled.
I know, bummer.
Are you gonna be on the podcast, Kyle?
Yeah, she was like, I need the oldest food possible. Who's that?
You do a lot of house of worship stuff, right? I mean, you have a current church gig right now.
Yes, I do as well.
So what do you do? Do you mix live during the service?
I do monitors. Actually, yeah. I do monitors at the church.
Okay.
I love being on stage with the band and the worship leaders and the bishop and stuff. And like Samantha said, it's this new streaming thing, so everyone's really jumping into it. And I work for a missionary Baptist church in downtown St. Louis, and technology is about as fast as the deacons in this church. And as much as they don't like playing contemporary music, they don't like doing contemporary things in their service. So everything becomes not a struggle, but it's actually, it's this new thing. And implementing it during these times was really crazy because I think St. Louis, obviously, just because of the name, it's a predominantly Catholic town. Catholic churches really don't do streaming service. So this could have been a busy time for us too. Getting streaming services ready for the other formats that hadn't had stuff set up. So we were going back and forth too. Now we split it up to the band records one night with the singers, then we come in and do clip videos on one night, and then Sunday we still go live at the church, but it's only who's going to be preaching that day, bishop, and then Bible study, and straight to everything from home. But we noticed this one too, and this is, Samantha will dig this, is you have to give specific instructions to worship leaders. Like, it has to be turn on your computer, open your browser. Like, if you don't give specific instructions, like, it's not like church where you can text somebody that's sitting next to them to fix it, because it's just them sitting at home. So yeah, there's definitely some things going down, but we did notice viewership. So getting to different formats was fairly easy. And kind of like Chris, like you've been doing at home with this StreamYard stuff, like testing it out on a day, doing test screens. They never used 1K tone to like level the audio out. So it's been kind of cool, and there's all the little video aspects about it too. So it's been fun. Like it definitely keeps me busy, and I'm trying new things. Like
I've had to learn a lot more about it than I would prefer also, which, it's good to know, but there have been days where I've regretted knowing anything about streaming.
What's some of the biggest mistakes or most common mistakes, other than just having never done it before, but things that are tripping people up?
Like moving on to the streaming platform?
Yeah.
Big ones are like having no idea how like buses work or aux sends or anything like that. And people having, I just saw some questions today on some forums about, it's clipping a lot. And I saw a bunch of not good suggestions to fix it. Like, I can't remember what one of them specifically was like, remove all the dynamics processing. And I'm like, I think that's the opposite direction you want to go in. And things like that. But it's people trying their best, but usually not having a technical background, trying to do something very technical all of a sudden. And
one that I've seen pop up on that note, streaming seems to be like pretty sensitive to bad gain structure, is what I found out. So if you work backwards, right? So you get a church where they've got speakers on sticks, and they went out and bought some powered speaker, and they put up, and obviously you crank that level pot all the way up on the back, right? And you connect your console. And so what that ends up is, if you do that, you end up where you're not running your board hot, because your board can be running at -20, -25, and you can be, driving those speakers full scale. So when you then make an aux mix of that, and or a matrix or whatever, and you send that to your streaming, your levels are like ridiculously low. And so that comes back to, well, no, your gain structure is not right. Like, get the board, it's the Pat Brown thing. Who's smoke alarms?
It's like there's nothing going on. They're just randomly going off. So
you should probably give that a look at some point.
Change your battery.
Change the battery. Just like your microphones, change the battery.
Every time her smoke alarm goes off, we should drink.
Yeah. So I will drink my my water bottle here. No, get your console right. If your meters look right, if you can look at your console right, your fader's in the right place, and your meter's doing the right thing, you're good, right? The meters and the fader, that's the Pat Brown's thing. The meters and the faders will tell you. Then when you want to send that wherever you want to send it, you're going to be in good shape. You can always turn that down, but if you're coming in at -45 on your streaming platform, it's not going to work too well.
Yeah, but then the problem is, like, these production companies that are sending people to install these things that maybe like don't totally know what they're doing end up setting the amps super weird. So then that's why the rest of their gain structure ends up being totally jacked, because they're compensating for what is normally cranked amps. And so you can barely fire up the preamps on every input before it's super loud in the room. So
you know what? That's a huge issue, and it's something that I just finished. For those of you who read Live Sound International, the next month there's a review. There's going to be a review in there of the 200 level SynodCon online class, which is audio applications, and it's top to bottom system gain structure, and it explains how to. And I can honestly say I've never been to a venue with an installed system that had the gain structure set 100% correctly from tip to tail. Ever.
Yeah,
I have not. And so, a modern amp, if you run that thing full open, you can get that driven to full output, way below, what's coming out of your board when your board's rocking. So, and you're right, Samantha, that'll push these gain structure issues upstream to where your meters aren't doing anything and your faders are silly low, and maybe that's functional in the room, but when you try to do anything else, when you try to go to multi-track recording, when you try to go to a streaming service, it's just not working. And so, Pat gets into this whole course about how to, why attenuators still have a role in a modern sound system. And it's really interesting stuff. Like, I mean, most people don't realize this. The input levels on most amplifiers are post an active stage. So you can turn that down all you want. You probably are clipping the input circuit, Even if you turn that down, you're just passing a quieter clip signal into the amplifier. It's really interesting stuff.
A quieter square wave.
Yeah. So I recommend everyone check that course out. It's SynodCon's 200 level audio applications course. It's phenomenal. It's really, 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 really excellent stuff. If anyone's looking out for training, but these are big issues, and it's sort of, when you're just like, yeah, we get in there, we turn everything on and it goes, it's fine. You can get away with that, particularly on a digital desk. But when you start going to, feeding recorders and feeding multi-track and feeding streaming services, all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, this is not working too well.
Yeah.
The streaming service stuff that we had to work with was, what is the dB output of YouTube, Instagram? Like, there is a standardized level. I think it was 24. I'd have to go back and look, but that's stuff that we had to look up too. And leveling your desk for that streaming output. So hitting that 1K tone at 0 off your desk to see what it's going to do at your streaming level, and in making the adjustments before you go live. Like, and I've noticed a lot of people on our Facebook site and other sites, it's like, everyone's doing a podcast now, and they're talking about compression and streaming levels of the podcasts. So, that's something that I'd love to be able to address coherently, like you would about the amplifier preamp game, because it is a different ballpark when you're talking about going from audio to video. And I remember sitting in a lot of late night shows and TV shows and news programs and stuff that we did live performance on, and a lot of the engineers would have that little single rack space speaker unit that people listen. That's what they listen to at home. It's not like they have a cool set of studio monitors or Genlex or in-wall monitors to listen to, or even a sub. Like, they would reference that thing to see what they're streaming or what audio was going at. I mean, even Saturday Night Live, Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, Conan, like all of them had this little single rack space. So you could actually hear that clip, that square wave. I'm just soft square waving, bro. It's okay.
So it's definitely a different world, but we're sort of, my whole statement about during this entire pandemic is like, we've been trying to get everybody onto a more like streaming minded platform, with the hopes that it would take like months or a couple years to transition, and then just to have like the whole rug ripped out from underneath it. And a lot of panicked phone calls and emails. And I've like had to have a very strict, I don't open up my computer on the weekends, because it's become such a,
But how do you play video games?
I don't. I do mobile gaming.
Oh,
I don't do PC gaming, not anymore. When I was younger, yes, but
you were so jazzed about the Master Chief Collection coming to PC. I remember, and then I think you just fell off that train. What happened?
I don't own a PC.
That would be a roadblock to playing.
That was slightly preventing me from doing it. I'm trying to get a Nintendo Switch right now. I really want to play Super Smash Bros.
There's a shortage of Switches.
There is.
Because my friend was like, "Hey, I want to get a Switch, and I can't find any." There is. Kyle, you were talking about like the loudness normalization that all these different streaming services are using. And I don't do a lot of streaming, but what I the thing is, like, Pandora uses a different target than Spotify, uses a different target than iTunes. Soundcheck. So loudnesspenalty.com is a great site. You upload your mix and it'll tell you loudnesspenalty.com.
Cool.
You upload a track, right? And it'll tell you how much it's going to be turned down by these different services. So you can say like, oh, wow, if everything's turning my mix down by 6 dB, then I'm over compressing. And for folks who are not aware of why this is an issue, right? I mean, here's a little history lesson. Here's a fun little history lesson, right? So analog vinyl, those days, there's no like level on analog where it's clean and then it's clipped. It's a very soft transition. And so the sweet spot was like, let's get it high enough. Oh, everybody drink. Oh.
This is better than Chris saying
So you get above that noise floor of the medium, right? You get above the tape hiss. but not so high that you're saturating the tape. So there was that sweet spot that was based on your RMS level, right? And that's why we get the RMS meters. And yeah, the peaks go above that, but that's okay. And so, wow, look at that. That's pretty fancy. Chris, you're getting this thing going, man. So then you go to digital, and all of a sudden we have a peak meter, and you're fine, you're totally linear until you clip, right? And so you get the loudness wars where everyone's trying to get the hottest recording that they can, and now we know exactly where that peak level is, and we can't push yet. So let's compress, let's bring that average level up. And so then you get these just ridiculously compressed recordings that have literally 3 or 4 dB of dynamic range. So it sounds louder. And then iTunes, Soundcheck, Pandora, Spotify, these streaming services come out and they go, well, okay, we're not going to have a track that comes on and blows people off their seat because it's perceived 10 dB louder than everyone else. So we're going to lower that by 10 dB. So all of a sudden, when you go back to normalizing for perceived loudness, that average level, the people that were crushing their peaks down are now at a disadvantage because at the same level, their mixes sound like garbage. They sound lifeless. There's no dynamic range. So there's no point in compressing to try to get this thing super loud anymore. So if you look at that loudness penalty site and if you see all of these services are turning down your mix by 6 dB, bring that level down, right? And then allow it to have some peaks, allow it to have some life. Because once you start bumping into their loudness limiting, you're just hurting yourself.
Also, it's not as if their, programs are going to be doing your stream any justice by compressing it. It's like, oh, well, let's be gentle with this. It's a hard chop. It's like, we don't care. We're not going to push this at all. So you might as well live within your own limits. So there's not more compression coming from different areas than is necessary. So.
Yeah. And a lot of churches right now.
The link on the
a lot of sorry, go ahead. Yeah, Kyle, you posted a link to that loudness penalty in the comment section, which is great.
It just says Facebook user for all of them, so I can't tell who's doing what. That's pretty.
Yeah, well, there's
because I'm not logged in.
No, it's
privacy.
It's a privacy thing. So when you're going live in a Facebook group, streaming services can't use the rights of people's names unless they allow it.
Wait. Facebook's concerned about privacy? I don't buy it.
Anyway, if we were on the main PSW page or something like that, it would show through, which we'll get to. But this is a beta test of the streaming services. Bunch of audio guys, specifically me, trying to do video here. So bear with the video side of this.
Chris, I gotta say, man, you've really done a good job.
You did ask for this, so for
there it is.
For Samantha,
the stream queen.
But no, so I was going to say, I think for churches right now, a lot of them are obviously pre-recording during the week, and so I think for people who are involved with the churches, the nice thing about that is you probably get a chance to work on your mixes more, kind of like a virtual sound check. You can really kind of without the room or without having the live environment, you get a chance to really kind of hone in on your mix. So it could really maybe shine on some people weren't paying attention to their mix, and so they need to fix some things, or it's a chance to really work on your stuff, which is really nice as well. So
that's been another point. What I'm hearing a lot of is their mix is not translating well, and that becomes a whole other topic of conversation.
But Howard Page, he tune that thing flat, man, and then your board mix sounds like the show. It's pretty wild. Now, if you're in a venue the size of this room, then you're hit, right? But if you get to a decent size room, if you tune PA flat, that board mix sounds a lot like the actual show did.
And as long as there's a lot of good variables, like no amps blaring on stage, stuff like that. I mean, everybody's on in-ears, that type of stuff. I keep seeing the meme going around like it's been 48 days since the front of house guy's been able to tell the guitar player to turn his amp down. So.
Correct. So we're actually coming out of this thing though, which is really cool. I think here in St. Louis, May 4th, we're going to be able to start resuming services. But we had a really cool Zoom meeting with our church where we actually kind of address this moving forward. We want to be better coming out of this for our streaming services. And I think that was one of the things probably Samantha's latching onto a lot is, hey, this was a good sign. for us to make it better going forward. So if it does happen again, or we do, I mean, streaming is a big thing. We started to notice people were watching from South Africa and different states and different countries and stuff. So they were paying attention more to how they were presenting it to their followers than who was sitting in the seats. And I think that's very important, because even as a live sound guy, when I first started going to late night shows and doing TV mixing and stuff like that, I didn't get that it didn't matter how it sounded to the studio audience. It mattered how it sounded to the thousands or hundreds of thousands of people at home, and not the 500 people at the studio audience, or whatever it was, 100 people, you know. And it opens the eyes of those people that are going to have to start dealing with that. So in a
even beyond just the sound part, like if everybody is streaming, like the only thing if everybody's production is amazing, the only thing separating you from any other church is like the content. Like, I mean, and even that is arguably hard to distinguish between many churches. So it's about community at a certain point.
Kyle, let me ask you this, because I think in a broader sense, this is similar to how our industry has dealt with like IP network based audio, right? Because you can't anymore say, yeah, I'm a working sound tech, I'm a working sound engineer, or even I'm a stagehand in 2020, and I have no idea how. I don't know what Dante is like. This is now part of the stuff we have to know, right? Running the DSP interface is now part of the stuff we have to know. So in a sense, I think streaming has become a part of our vocabulary and responsibility as professionals, whether we like it or not. It's something we're going to have to deal with. So, what do you do when the church says, hey, I know you're mixing monitors from front of house, and you're doing front of house, and I know you're our guitar tech, and I know you're maintaining our streaming services. At what point does that become a person's job? Just like at some point, your church, I'm sure, had a conversation about, okay, well, we can do basic monitors in front of house, but at some point we need a monitor engineer. At what point does the streaming become a job?
I'm looking over at Samantha now, because we actually kind of talked about this at thing.
And I have to look this way and then down.
Bunch. I'm like,
I'm
poking my sister over here.
That's an awesome question, and it's a really hard conversation, and it's a line item on.
And you make that hard question believable, because that's the whole bit. Is my very first, I wasn't working in church. I was a rock and roll kid, and it kind of fell into the house of worship thing. And my first article with dang, I forgot the name of the magazine, but I did an article on when it's time to hire a professional. And that's awesome. Have to be really blunt about it. And even one of my very first WFX things, I did a panel, and that was one of the panel discussion thing, is when you have to hire a professional, like when a volunteer isn't going to cut it. Now you're going to have higher demands from that, and your ROI to your church will blossom because of it. And that's the thing that you have to promote, is having that professional on staff is going to make 4 to 5 other people excel, period. Like, if it's the right person, I'm not saying the wrong person's going to go in and not do anything but mix and leave, but the right person that you hire on at your church that is a professional will spread that wealth to 3 to 4 to 5 people.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Like, it's
I just want to adjust that Facebook question. No, I'm not talking about Dante in terms of streaming. I'm saying that 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you could be an audio engineer and be working live concerts and have no idea about IP-based networking, and that's not an option anymore. Now that's just part of our job.
It's roadies.
Yeah, and so I feel like understanding basic streaming stuff, that's headed the same way. So the stuff that is expected of us on a professional scope, I think, is widening. So Kyle, I guess my question is 2 questions. There's Brian. Hey Brian.
Howdy.
I like that your name's all joining us.
I'm sorry, Samantha, say that again. What'd you say? What?
So I like that your name's all lowercase.
I have a thing about capital letters. I'm kind of against them. I don't know why.
You're using the same typefaces as the analog Midas consoles from the late 80s. They did all lowercase.
I wasn't around for that. I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
I'm the oldest one here still, Brian.
I don't think that's true, Kyle. I know. I actually know how old you are, so I know that's no longer true. I've just now taken the title.
I was taking the heat off you, bro. I was taking the heat off you.
And nothing but a thing.
Kyle, you need to reclaim your spot. You're gonna need one of those glasses straps. You know what I mean? That's how
yeah, there you go.
Well, Brian, I think
or you got to do this.
Yeah,
a lot of this kind of thing.
Yeah. It's good to see you, man, because I know that we've kind of been floating in the same circles for a while, but I don't think we've spoken. So hello, welcome.
Yeah, no. Nice to meet both you and Kyle, kind of like in the closest thing to real life we get these days.
I think we've crossed paths before. You've been on my friends list for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, if you've acquired any gray hair in this business, you've crossed paths with everybody else that's acquired any gray hair in this business. So
I don't see much hair.
Yeah. That's the other thing that happens.
That's 1K. We could talk about resonant frequency of all the sound guys too.
Kyle, I love what you said about why, when is it time to hire a professional? And I think there's a two-part question there.
It comes down to size, to like the size of your congregation, essentially. So,
well, my question would be, so if you're a volunteer handling this stuff for your church, when is it time to hire a professional? Number one, right? Number two, if you are a professional handling this stuff, when is it time to hire a second professional? Because, in a lot of situations, mixing the stream is a job. In a lot of situations, mixing monitors is a job. And that's not true for all situations, right? But I mean, if I use this example all the time. The band that I work with regularly, I mix 5 in-ear mixes from front of house. Now, the reason I can do that is because I've worked with them so long and we are so consistent that I don't need to make a lot of changes to that stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're very good about telling me what they need different. But if it were one-offs or if a lot of those variables were changing, there's no way that I could be doing 5 in-ears mixes from front of house and mixing front of house and, something suffers at some point. You only have so much attention. So I think, if you're being asked to do additional stuff, when do you say, hey, okay, well, this is more work. It's going to take more hours from me. So let's talk about bumping my rate. Or when do we talk about bringing another person on board? Right. I mean, is it fair to keep asking the person to do more and more work and not paying them more? I think there's a lot of questions that need to be explored around this. Kyle, you're laughing. What are you laughing at?
Because I was waiting for Samantha to laugh too. Because you said bump in rate.
I don't see bumps in rates very often. Especially, it's like once you get in, like you are in there. So
yeah, and if you're getting paid at church, you're doing something really special, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, volunteer is usually that is what it is. You're a volunteer, Some guy who played guitar in a Steve Miller cover band is now doing sound for you because he's had a friend that had a Zildjian hat with a ponytail one time. It's not because you knew what you were doing. It was because you were in a band one time and now you're pushing faders.
But that's the old Jim Brown. That's why your church will buy 3 sound systems before they get the one they need. That right there. Because Steve's dad's going to take care of it for us. He's going to put it in. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Dad's a bass player too, bro.
Yeah. So is that it? I mean, Samantha, do you see that? Is that something you run into all the time? Because I don't work a lot in the house of worship sector, but the times the stuff that I've done with that's a constant struggle. Is rather than doing it poorly 5 times, do it right once. Call someone who knows what they're doing professionally once. Get it right, and then it'll serve you for 10 years. You don't have to touch this thing, or because if you try to just limp along and you're going to use this 40-year-old mixer, it's not usually worth it in the long run. I found.
Mm-hmm. Well, to answer like what you had asked before, it's volunteers up to a certain point, probably a few hundred congregants, and then you hire somebody, and then once you get past like probably 800 or 1,000, you probably bring in somebody else, and there are a lot of jobs to be had, like production jobs to be had for a house of worship. So, and it goes up from there. Like I do a lot of work at a church that's got like 22,000 members, and there's like on the main campus there's like 4 audio people like on staff, and each campus has another audio person. So but as far as investing and trying to get them to understand, in my experience, it's getting in good with their pastors. So like I teach a lot at a seminary, and Kyle's probably really familiar. Once you kind of like enter into this circuit, like word spreads, and I consider it my job to help them know I'm here to help you. I'm familiar with you and what you need. And so they end up coming to me for a lot of consulting or what have you, like, hey, we're thinking about upgrading this. Can you take a look at it? Or can you look over this bid from this production or install company? Things like that. But it's really, I've seen a lot of not great jobs installed. Probably more not
That's
great.
very
jobs.
diplomatic of you. Not great.
But it comes down to relationships, and but at the end of the day, if it's not important to them, it's not going to be.
Chris, can you make that Facebook comment really big? Because that's my mantra right there. If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you hire an amateur.
That's exactly it. So I often go in and fix problems and consult over things that were really simple, or I get on calls and help people. And I'm a professional, my hours aren't free. But it might cost them, $100 for me to come talk to them or come look over their system. And it takes me like 3 button clicks to fix it because they're, somebody's touching something too much, or they're not touching stuff enough. And, that's the way it is. I don't mind the business. I'm trying to help educate them. And that's part of, why I do the podcast and why I do Churchtown University and why we're doing all this stuff, because I want everybody to, thanks. I want everybody to be better and have all of our levels raised so we can all participate. So
there's 2 points there that are closely related, I think. There's Willa. Hello, Willa.
Hi, I'm sorry I got my schedule mixed up. I am so sorry, guys.
Where's the cat? Is the cat nearby?
She is on her chair over here.
Okay, so you said there was 2 points.
Yes. So the first point is the number one thing that I fix when I go into a venue, and oftentimes a church, is that the system was installed wrong. The speakers are the wrong speakers for the room. They're hung in the wrong spot. They're pointing the wrong way. You can't EQ your way out of that, because people say, well, you come in and tune our system. The expectation is you're going to put in some delays. You're going to put in some filters, right? I can't fix you bought the wrong PA with filters. Okay. So that's an expensive oopsie. And all my hours in the world are not going to fix that. So that's the first point, is that it's very expensive in the long run to try to do it cheaply up front.
I've been in a room that cost millions of dollars with a system that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it sounded bad.
I remember we talked about it.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and Kyle and I say this a lot, and Chris, this from corporate. A lot of corporate gigs. Yeah.
I say that a lot.
Corporate gig, often one fader, right? One fader. And I've done my fair share of those. No, there's no shame in that. Here's why. Your job is not to push that fader up and down.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong, that's when you earn your money. I mean, if you talk about a system engineer, systems engineers, like once the show gets going, hopefully they're not doing too much, right? But God forbid something happens. That's when you earn your pay as an audio engineer. It's not because you're doing this. That's a job. That's part of the job. But in terms of why are we paying the extra money to get a professional versus an amateur? Because I can get my mom to come in and sit down and hey, mom, the vocals get too loud, pull it back, right? That's something that's, and you do a lot of work with this, Samantha. You're training volunteers on how to listen critically and how to adjust the mix. And can you hear it right? What you can't do in an afternoon training session is, when something fails, when there's a big problem during a service, how long does it take to get back up and running? And that's where the professional is going to jump in and get the system back up. And there's no substitute for that. So, if you think that what you're paying for is someone to push the faders up and down, you need to reevaluate that, I would say.
Yeah, that's something that me and Brian talked about. He's on an upcoming episode of Church Sound Podcast, and we talk about just that, like troubleshooting, like where to start and like why. Thank you. And like, it's like, because troubleshooting, that's where you earn your money, is troubleshooting. So.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, most of the time, let's face it, most of the time, if we're getting called in to do stuff at a church, it's because something is very broken and they can't figure out why.
Yeah,
And
it's never like, this has been going great. We just like really wanted to see a fresh face.
We just wanted to see if you could polish it. No, it's broken.
Well, I got a call from a theater. Sorry, Chris. And they said, can you just come by for an hour? Can we buy an hour of your time? Can you come by and just tune our system? 1,800 seats, no DSP, no under balcony delays, a single Bose 802 per side, pointed straight into the front of the balcony. Okay? And I'm not trying to make fun of them. I'm not. No,
it's just
I'm not trying
like
to shit on them. But my point is, there's no EQ that I can put on your system that's going to fix this. You have the wrong tool. You bought the wrong thing, right? So you need a pickup truck, and you bought a Ford Focus. It's a fine car. It's just not the right car. You didn't get the right thing. So and they were like, "Well, but pink noise," and I'm like, "Okay, you watched the YouTube video about an RTA. I know how you got here, right? I get it. I'm glad you're interested. This is cool.
I bought an RTA app on the Apple Store. Yeah, I think I know what I'm doing.
But there are problems that an RTA can help you solve, and this is not one of them, right? So the thing is, what I ended up doing with an analogy, because I don't want to go down the whole. That's not a rabbit hole. Making someone feel stupid is not productive generally, right? So the analogy was, because the guy was a lighting guy, and I said, "You have the wrong lighting fixture." I said, "I can put gels on this and focus it all day, but it's not. You need a Leco and you have a scoop." And he was like, "Aha!" Right? So again, don't wait till if you're to the point where you're putting filters in your PA. I mean, you're 97% of the way there, right? You should have started this so much earlier than that. And again, it's, this comes up. Oh, well, we're using what we had, because for the reality, some people you gotta use what you have, right? So and it's not about we have access to everything, we have the best tools. It's not. No one has that. No one has unlimited budget. No one gets whatever they want. However, if you're at the point where your organization, your church is about to make an investment, you're the buyer. You have some leverage here. You have some options here. So that's the point where I would urge you to call someone with some professional experience and make sure you're spending your money in a way that's going to be responsible, in a way that's going to help you and your group get the best results. Do the best you can with the money that you have. And you always want more money, but there's a good investment with that money and there's a bad investment with that money. And so that's where talking to a professional on the phone, even if it's for a half hour, can really point you in the right direction and avoid buyer's remorse later on. Yeah, end of soapbox. Yeah.
That's why I call Miss Cleo about all my advice. I'm like, Miss Cleo, I need to make money. And she looks and goes, "Oh, Kyle, I get you."
So can you do that Jamaican accent again?
Miss Cleo, I don't think anyone under the age of 25 is going to know who Miss Cleo is.
I'm surprised I knew it.
I'm under the age of 65, and I don't know who Miss Cleo is.
Oh, I'm with Brian. I have no idea who Miss Cleo is.
I'm completely lost.
So
you've
Brian,
seen a parody of this person. There's no way you haven't.
Well, it's possible that I haven't.
Hey, we gotta shout out to Michael Reed. It's him and his wife's 2-year anniversary today. That's why he's.
Yay!
Nice.
Yeah.
Super nice.
So, all right, that's all. Wait, Flash said, check out the Church Sound podcast, guys. Hit that up.
Yeah, there it is. Hit it. Promo.
So, Brian, you've been making a stir on the internet about what is or isn't balanced audio, apparently.
Oh yeah, nobody responded to that LinkedIn comment, Brian. You need to get up in there.
I got mildly up in there. What I basically said was, I might be confused. Could you point me to where you've learned the thing that you've learned so that I can learn it with you?
They never do.
And they never do. No, I had the audacity to claim that you didn't actually have to have symmetrically balanced audio on two legs in order to have balanced audio, that it just has to have the same impedance, which I literally made that because I was listening to Michael I don't remember which episode it was, but you said something about
Church Sound podcast.
It was Church. It was Church Sound. It was the special episode.
Yeah.
Yes. Very nice.
Yeah, Potter and I were talking about. Sorry, Samantha and I were talking about how to
info beware.
Yeah. So, some of the tool set we have available to make sure that we're getting good information. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so that was kind of like I'd been meaning to make a video anyway, and Samantha and I talked about something completely different, and I started to write that, and then it was boring. And then I listened to y'all's podcast and went, "Oh, here's a hornet's nest I can poke."
Yeah.
Here I could just, this is me. You've never heard of me, and you're wrong. That always ends well.
He's the guy, by the way, in case anyone, yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's great.
I moved. He's over here now.
We have an article on ProSoundWeb, and it's about phase versus polarity, and the title is "Understanding Pro Audio's Most Pervasive Inaccuracy." And I think this is number 2, right?
Yeah,
I think
you're right. Yep.
Every audio textbook I've ever seen, except for maybe one, is the whole plus minus mirror image, right?
Yep.
And that is how it works, but it's not why it works.
Right. Well, and it's not always how it works, and that's the thing.
Right.
You can literally just have a signal on pin 2. You don't have to have a signal on pin 3, and in a lot of outputs of a lot of consoles, you don't have a signal on pin 3.
No, the DBX GQ231S, that 2U 31 bands, just like the budget double 31 band graphic that everybody has in their clubs and their churches. That thing the silver one, that's impedance balanced. If you meter 3-to-1, there's nothing going on.
Right.
And it works fine.
Impedance balance, you'll see it. I mean, it's kind of buried in the specs a lot of times. It's like, aux outputs, quarter-inch outputs are impedance balanced, not differential balanced, and whatever. And it's like, it's kind of buried in there. And because it works 99% of the time when you plug it into something else, like nobody pays much attention to it. But I mean, it was like 5 or 6 years ago on ProSoundWeb, on one of the forums, and somebody said something basically to this effect of, you don't, it only has to be balanced impedance. It doesn't have to be balanced. And I was like, that doesn't sound, and of course, so then I, rather than immediately chiming in and going, no, you're wrong, I went, let me see if I'm wrong. And
there's a lesson there, kids.
How dare
I went down and I was like, oh crap, I'm actually wrong. And that was an interesting thing. I mean, it is, because it largely works most of the time. It's an easy thing to get wrong. And it's not super critical, but kind of like my main point of doing it was it's always good to examine, like, why do we think we know what we think we know? And you probably don't actually, I mean, I still don't really fully understand impedance. Like, my second video where I talked about balance stuff, I was talking about an active circuit, and I just said, it's like pixie dust and unicorn tears. I don't know how they work. I really don't.
I heard it was unicorn toenails in the newer ones because they're cheaper.
Yes, they're cheaper.
There's like trade embargoes on the tears. But I mean, what you said, like, to me, is the more important than the balanced thing, which is important. Is like, hey, is there a possibility that I'm wrong about this? That little tiny moment is like so important, and it's a hard thing to learn. And like, I mean, how does that feel when you find out, like, oh my gosh, I've thought this for 15 years and it's wrong? Right. That can be tough. You know what I mean? Or,
it's like I'm starting if I can ever get around to it, starting a video thing where I'm just gathering a bunch of audio people together and we just argue about stuff, because that just sounds like it'd be fun. But mostly trying to argue about things.
It'll be a bloodbath.
Yes, it'll be great.
And we're starting off with higher sampling rates. Everybody, here we go.
It's in there. It's one of the topics. Feel free to join us.
Oh, I can't do it.
I'm logging out.
I will. I'll be on there.
But a lot of it's like examining, why do we know what we think we know, and also like how much of what, like, I've been doing this for a year or two now, and I have certain ways that, like, I do it this way, this is the right way to do it, and then it's I at kind of the end of the podcast, when I was talking with Samantha, I ribbed her about something that she had said that I disagree, like, that's not the right way to do it. But then within like 2 minutes after that, it was, well, it actually kind of depends. Like, it actually depends on what your circumstances are and what your workflow is and what, and which was completely right. It's like, I nearly always do it this way, but the way that she was saying
it was like either
correct.
Or pre-fade or something, or I don't remember.
It was a web streaming thing, and it's like, if you're doing a web stream off of a console, especially in a church environment, I prefer a post fader feed mostly, so that as you're tracking the cues of the service,
Yeah.
you automatically, but that's because I never use the on-off switches of the channels. I always use faders. So it's a workflow thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the hardest part is,
well, this is what we talked about on the podcast. Understand why you're doing it a certain way. If some guy just told you to do it that way, that even if that is the right way to do it, that's not a great way to go forward. If you understand the fundamentals of what you're talking about and why you're doing it this way, and if you can justify, yeah, I thought about that, but the reason I didn't do that is this. If you can have those dialogues with yourself, have multiple tricks in the bag. I would who runs their reverbs pre-fader? No one. But I do it on one show a year with one band because in that particular circumstance, it makes the most sense for me to do it that way. And it solves a problem that I would have otherwise, right? So if the rule is never run your effects pre-fader, I would not have arrived at that solution. If it's, hey, we don't usually run our effects pre-fader because here's why it's usually problematic. You have that context. You can make that call when it comes up, and then you can try a different solution. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at. I don't care really why you're doing something. I would like it when you've kind of arrived at that because you thought about it a little bit.
My friend Zach said to make your bed, Michael.
This is the guest room, dude. I don't even, no one, see, look, there's stuff.
Bed.
There's a measurement mic. There's some gaff tape.
No, it is your bed.
That's my mobile smart kit right there. So it's resting right now.
Hey, Kyle, you've been itching to talk about gig horror stories.
Yeah.
Wait, do we have a subtitle for it? You got a lower third? Yeah, there it is.
Gig horror stories.
Or just storytelling to begin with. Like, I know every year that I do the Audio Engineering Society thing for the students here in the Midwest, like Sunday storytelling is the thing that you want to go do.
We were on that. The three of us were on that last year. Yeah.
Yep.
Good times.
Kyle told you told a wholly inappropriate story about a guy getting branded. Was his name Dirty?
His name was Dirty.
So
is that an adjective or that's literally his name?
His name's John.
Yes.
Proper noun. They called him
exclusive.
They referred to him.
Right. True.
Yeah.
He was the merch guy that he didn't do merch very well, so he was just the guy who toured with us that we made do stupid stuff. So there's 1,000 stories.
See the
about
comic
Dirty.
relief. What tour was that?
That was a Honda Civic tour, 2004, with Fallout Buoy. In Poughkeepsie, New York, at the Chance.
Oh shit! My buddy David works there. Yeah.
And it was dead of winter, so it was great.
No kidding.
I told you guys an offline story last week.
You did that.
See, that's not. You don't. No, don't say. Oh, I told y'all a great story, and then everyone laughs. And then we move on.
Not everybody.
That's not.
It was inappropriate. We'll have the shortest run with a sponsor in recorded history if he tells that story on here.
Just to clarify, it was at the Warfield in San Francisco. So if anyone's been to the Warfield in San Francisco, it's about the surrounding area and things that happen outside your bus on a normal basis if you're playing at the Warfield.
So Kyle,
not you actually telling this story or this specific story, but I know this story. Yeah.
You could have. I have like 8 great Warfield tenderloin stories that.
So we were at Warfield.
Kyle, I want to know in sort of the rough and tumble tours that you've been on, before you got to these big levels that were really formalized and well advanced, was there ever a situation where you walked in and just, it was like completely, you're like, oh my God, there's no PA. Like, was there ever that bad? Can you tell us the story?
There was this place, you guys might know the name of it if you've been there. It's either Kill Devil Hills or Nag's Head, North Carolina. It's like a little island off the side. There's 2 little venues. One has a venue bar across the street, and then the restaurant basically runs the venue. We were late getting in because I think we were driving from South Carolina or something, and they had a EAW, I think it was a 750 rig. And I walked in, we were late. We were in an RV, and I walked into a place at like 4 p.m. and the PA's on the ground and all the speakers are out of the PA.
As one does.
Doors were in. We were traveling with our own support. So we only had a local support, which we booted off the bill, and then we I told the dudes on the RV, I was just like, stay on the RV, got to get the PA back up. Everything's fine.
Everything will be fine.
Come to
You
find
just have
out,
to get the PA back up.
come to find out, the speakers had nothing to do with it. It was the processor that was messed up all along.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Oh, were they were chasing something?
Yeah,
and they were chasing the wrong thing.
You remember those old single rack space EAW processors that they sent out with like the 750s, 850s, whatever, 650s?
This is what I just used at this gig in February.
Was it the UX 8800?
Yeah, that Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie Anderson designed that. Yeah. So, if you ask him about it, he'll say it was designed by a genius. Yeah.
So we just had to find a processor at 5 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday on an island off of one of the Carolinas. I mean, that was kind of a horror story, but we did open the doors. I think it was an hour late. But yeah, man, show went on.
You can make noise out of a 750 rig with a three-way Ashley. Like, I mean, you can make sound come out of that and hack away at the graphic until it like isn't horrible. So
find a three-way Ashley on an island. Off of
Did I mention it was on an island?
That was the UX 8800. That's a funny story because I was at breakfast with Jamie one day and we were testing out. We had a DSP on the bench at the shop, and it was clearly broken. It wasn't that. It was another manufacturer, shall not be named, and it was like we were putting 17, 18 dB of gain into these filters, and you could barely hear it. Like something was very wrong with these algorithms, and so we were at breakfast, and I said, there's no way those curves match what it's actually doing under the hood. And Jamie thought I was talking about the UX 8800, which he built the filters for it. He's like, tell me why you think that. Like he was ready to get me.
You almost got fired.
No, he was like, oh, tell me why you think that. And I was like, no. I was like, oh my gosh.
He wants a 6-page report on why. Yeah,
no, he was ready to just blast me out of the water and tell me I was wrong, but no, and I would have been wrong because that EAW box does exactly what it looks like it's doing, and that is not. I'm sure, Brian, you can speak to that. That is not always the case.
No, that is not always the case.
Well, and are the traditional ones where you roll on the dice kind of.
Well, and like 100 years ago, when I first started the sound company, they had it was not literally 100 years ago. It was 87 years ago.
They rented out wax cylinders.
Yes, we had the little wire. Yeah, but they had just bought an EAW something 850 rig. No, Butch gave 300s, and they had one processor for it, but they had a bunch of boxes, and they had the Yamaha. Kyle, do you remember these? The Yamaha 4-way crossover digital is one of the first ones.
Yep.
With the motorized knobs on it. You know what I'm talking about? I can't remember.
Motorized knobs.
2040.
Yep.
But anyway, and they had a TEF 20 analyzer.
Cool. TEF rig.
And like one of my first like gigs was to put that processor on the bench with the TEF 20 and make the 2040's output look like that processor. And that was interesting because none of the curves that come out of that are remotely like symmetrical or like it's all really screwy, weird stuff. And like there were no filters in the 2040 that did what you were wanting it to do. So it was like, take a filter up. Oh, I need more cut at 125. So if I take something out to 800 and then like put a really wide band, cut it, and it'll make it 8. It was weird, but they ran those stupid 2040s as the processor for KF300s and for their 850 rig after I did those for another 10 years. So I guess I got close enough. But
when has ever a Yamaha filter worked like you wanted it to?
Oh, come on now. Here we go. In the dear sir. When's the last time you checked?
Don't diss my friends. Don't diss my friends at Yamaha. Don't do it.
Like, Kyle, speak it like it is. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a straight shooter, bro.
Here's the thing. Here's about Yamaha filters, and it's the high pass filters tend to be, at least on the desk that I grew up using, like LS9. It was like my first digital, right? That high pass filter is much shallower slow. It's like second order. than what you would typically encounter on a modern digital desk. And that's not bad. It's just different. So I found that when I was, I would be pushing the 220, 250, like it's getting that thing high. And I'm looking at the screen going, man, that's high. That's just way too high. But when I'm listening to it, I'm like, no, that's where it needs to be. And so like, there's a reason for that. It's a shallower filter. And so, measure your filters, guys, and trust your ears. And so, just if you go, hey, if that's a narrower filter, you won't be freaking out when you have to roll it up to 250, or you won't be just riding it out at 120 with it sounding like crap because you're scared. So,
actually, Michael, your whole speech about the high pass filter and different slopes and whatever, which I think I've now heard 4 times. That wasn't meant to be a cut. It really wasn't.
But, yeah, it was.
I'll drink to it.
But my point was, actually, I kind of didn't know that. Like, it was part of my reason why I was always, when people say, so what should I set the high pass filter up to? It's like, roll it up till it sounds bad and then back it off a little bit, because they're different desks. It sounds different. Like it's, I couldn't tell you what the slope on an XL4 is versus a 4K versus whatever. Like, I don't know what they were. I just dial it up and there we go.
Right. And I measured it. I did an article 2 years ago about the article was like aux-fed subs versus high pass filter, right? Because people that don't mix aux-fed subs will typically say, well, I have a high pass filter, so why would I need that? Right. So my investigation for myself was, are they equivalents? Can they do the job of each other? And what I found is, and I was talking about this with Pooch and Chris Rabel the other day, because they were like, why would you do that? Why would you run your subs on an aux? But they mix to a flat PA. If your PA has 30 dB of bass tilt or 20 dB of bass tilt, which sounds like an obnoxious amount, but you see it, okay? You absolutely see it. 12 dB is tame in the rock world. If your high-pass filter only rolls off at 12 dB per octave, and you have 18 dB of bass tilt, that high-pass filter is just restoring your response of your mic back to flat, back where it would have been otherwise with a flat PA and no high-pass filter. So the people who mix to really tilted PAs feel that they need to run subs on an aux often, not everybody, but this is a reason, because the high-pass filter can't combat the roll-up of the low end of the PA. And so that was a little brainwave that I had that I would not have gotten to unless I took high-pass filters in Smart and literally stacked them on top of a bunch of PAs I measured in Smart, went, oh, I see what's going on here, Did
you get on their podcast?
No, I mean,
no, dude, I don't rank. They're like they're big dogs. That's a big dog podcast.
I was gonna say. I see that.
No, we had an email chain going about it.
We're all down here in terrier territory. We're not in the big dog land. No.
Dude, I get email chains from H&M and my credit card companies. Like, Pooch has never emailed me.
Horror stories. I think Willa has some that I know I want to hear.
Wait, but you should everyone check out the Church Sound podcast. You still got that one? Yeah.
There is a space between church and sound if you're Googling it.
I was trying to stick with the pro sound theme. I thought they were together. Sorry.
All right, Willa, what's your horror story, Willa?
So first off, I just want to say that I was listening to Church Sound podcast on my walk today, and Samantha does an amazing job. She's such a great interviewer, and she's capturing some really incredible
stories.
There's a
space, by the way. There's a space now. See?
There's a space.
Noted the space.
Available on your favorite podcast platform.
Yep.
Oh, Lord.
Yes. So please, everybody, go and check it out and give it some love. So anyway, for me, the worst was probably my second gig ever on my own. So I'd worked for a production company for a year, and I learned all of my live sound knowledge from that experience, which wasn't as much as that probably could have been. So it was my second gig ever, and it was at a really, really small little restaurant, grocery store club thing that's here in Austin.
Grocery store
wait,
club?
wait, I feel like we should just revisit what you just said.
Grocery store club?
So it's a restaurant, it's a convenience store, and it's a venue all in one. And it's very, very small. It takes up like maybe a corner of space. I'm not sure what the square footage is, but it's very small. And it's a cute little spot. As a patron, it's wonderful. The food is really good. They carry some really amazing beers and wines, and the vibe is really cool. But as a sound tech, it sucks. You have to pull up the PA from the basement up 3 flights of stairs, and it's all old and dented. And you're lucky if you can find 5 working mics and 2 working mic stands. So a lot of times it was just taping mics to stacks of things to hold them in place in front of stuff. That was a good trick of mine. But for this terrible day, I had been given the wrong load-in time, and somehow that threw me off so bad that I set everything up incorrectly and backwards. And I wasn't able, the band was already there because they were super early anyway, but they had already set up and they were really comfortable. And I didn't have time to ring out the wedges. And it was just, I take responsibility. It was like the PA was not set up very well, and I was just doing everything wrong. And then the show started, and the band is very, very loud, and I can't get the vocals up there ever. And I'm on a Mackie 1608 doing the best that I can. And
or as I like to call it, the equalizer, because that desk, that's the desk right there. That's all is laid bare.
It's
right?
True. It very much is. And it was a bluegrass band, and it sounded terrible. It sounded so bad, and the vocals were not above anything at all, and it sounded so terrible. And I mean, the band was very sweet about it, but at one point the frontman Jimmy shouted out, "Oh, there's a ferret." That's not what he shouted. So he shouted out, he's like, "Hey, how's everybody doing? Woo! Everybody's really excited and everyone's applauding. How's it sounding out there?"
Oh no.
Oh no, don't do that to me. No.
And I'm just like hiding in shame, and I'm standing in the back of the venue, and there's this guy sitting at the bar next to me. He leans over and he's like, "It doesn't sound very good, does it?" And I'm just like, "No, it's like garbage." It was so bad. And I apologized profusely to the band afterwards, and they were very kind, and they even tipped me like $20 afterwards. And so that was such a huge learning experience for me of like figuring out like, okay, so I definitely really need to make sure that I am a full hour and a half ahead of everybody else. And I learned so much, and I got there early the next time. And in between, I ended up working with them again. And in between the time of working with them again and that night, I had pulled on some engineer friends of mine that work in bluegrass a lot. And I took them out for a beer. And I'm like, "Hey man, this is what happened. This is what everything sounded like. And it sounded like trash. How do I avoid this mistake? What can I do in the future?" And I just picked everybody's brains, and I took all of that, and I finally had a chance to mix them again a few months later. And I got there like an hour earlier than the band, because I knew the band was going to be half an hour early. Got everything set up and polished, and I remembered their setup, and I got everything ready to go. And that time I managed to get the vocals above everything. It sounded balanced. The band was really awesome to work with. The crowd had a good time. And this time when they asked, "How's it sounding up there?" Woo!
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, it's not often that you get to go from horror story to "but I triumphed." Usually it's horror story, and then I cried myself to sleep. And then I was afraid to ever go back in that venue ever again.
Oh, I was.
I think
so the fact that you were able to there's a triumph at the end is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, it played into that night, amongst other things, kind of played into my whole thing of like my anti-pep talk that I developed for myself for the first couple of years that I did this, where most of y'all know I would talk to some of my engineer friends that I looked up to, and I noticed a common thread in all of their stories, which is I effing sucked when I first started. I butchered all of the mixes. Everything sounded terrible. I was bad at my job, and I was dealing with gear that was broken all the time. And you learn. So that little tidbit kind of kept me going and reminding me, well, everybody starts somewhere. So when I would pull up to the venue, I would have a conversation with myself of like, let's go in there and suck. Let's have the worst show ever. It doesn't have to be perfect. People are going to throw things at you. The band is going to shout at you, and it's going to be terrible, but it's going to be awesome because we're going to learn something from it. And what better to do that than like a small club? So
yep, that's true. Yep.
You know what, Willa? You know what I think? I mean, like, I'm glad you got the made for TV ending there, but more importantly to me is the debrief. Like, when you leave a gig, I always ask myself when I'm in the car on the way home, what worked and what didn't work, right? And
what
and
could have gone
so
better?
yeah,
I
and
always
so
ask myself is why does I take this gig?
I mean, and sometimes the answer is there's nothing that I could have done to prevent that. Sometimes the answer was it wasn't my fault, but there's a lot of valuable stuff that you say, well, next time I'm going to put my paddles on the other side because X, right? So that means when you show up the next time, you've already sort of thought through it and you're like ready to be effective, and you don't stand there scratching your head going, great piece of advice I got early on, and I wish I could remember who said it. Have a reason for everything you do. So I can choose something as simple as I can run my snake up the left aisle or the right aisle. I want to have a reason why I picked the right aisle. Everything I do, I try to have a reason for it. Now, look, mixing's artistic, right? So I'm not talking about that, but from a systems engineering perspective, I do feel that oftentimes there is an objectively better choice to make. And so what I find is if you reason through that stuff on your own, you're more effective when you get in the venue because you already know, you thought about it, you go in, you do what you got to do. And when you hit a snag, you have sort of this little system in place to sort of think through it and sort of check these boxes off in your head and find something that's going to work. So when you screw something up, to go, gee, all right, why didn't that work? What can I do differently? What should I learn as a result of this? That's really, really valuable stuff. And so, that's sort of the silver lining for blowing a gig to me is it gives me some really, really good food for thought on how to make things better in the future.
Well, even so, it's not just systems teching that's important for, because I mean, from the mixing side, you make choices no matter what. And I like to think of it as an instrument. So the way that I set up my stage is how I'm setting up my instrument. And there's a reason that I run my snake this way across the front of the stage behind the monitors as opposed to in front of the monitors or around the back of the stage or around stage left or right. And they're like those little choices and the reason why I set my mic stands this way, that it's all in setting up your instrument and all lends itself to allowing the show to happen the most cohesive way possible.
Yeah, no, so I mean, and this is I have a very long list of failed Live Sound International articles like that didn't get to their finished state, and this was one of them, which was the gig. So much experience comes from going out and doing a gig, but I think half of the experience comes from the mental debrief after the gig. So if you're just going and doing the gig and you're putting out of your mind, I think you're missing opportunity to gain even more from that. What are you doing, Kyle?
After a gig, bro, I'm just like, I'm Brian Maddox. I'm like, I just cry in my hands and be like, I hope the check deposits.
There does come a time when it's just like, okay, nobody died.
Yeah.
Most of the blood will clean up. It'll be fine. I always, because like I do a lot of things that are like annual events or like every 3 months or whatever. And I always joke that like, on the doorway on my way out is like a big giant electromagnet. And it just it completely sucks my brain so that the next time I come 3 months later, I'm like, what did we do on this again?
Yeah,
how was this?
And that'll revert back to the thing that we were talking about, corporate gigs. You said why people hire you is for the experience. No, it's for the I can sit there and look decent and keep my mouth shut and keep the gig running normally. I mean, and I can talk to a client without anybody.
Well, that's a big part of it.
That's way higher than being able to go fix an XLR really quick.
Being able to talk to somebody would be relatively easy, but nope.
No, it's not. And
no, being able to mic with class and decency as well. Yes. Yeah, discreetly. Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm special, but to me it feels very obvious on how you should talk to somebody. But
streaming.
But it just like it feels like that is an automatic part of the job. But I've run into so many audio folk that are even like my age that are just like have really bad attitudes and are like insufferable. And it's like, how are you here right now? How did you?
No, you're right. We've had I work with a local production company here, and we've had stagehands that we've had to say afterwards, we can't put him on this gig because he can't talk to talent. Mm-hmm. We cannot trust him to not say something stupid or offensive to the talent. And that's huge. And these are all, I mean, I think I bring up Ryan O'John once an episode, but I'm going to do it again. I asked Ryan like 10 years ago, how do you go to these cool gigs? Is he here?
He was.
So I said, Ryan, how do you go to these cool gigs? And he said, I'm a decent sound guy, but I'm a nice guy. He said, I'm the kind of guy that people want to be around. And so, you know, you can be the best tech on the face of the earth, but if you're a jerk, people don't want to hire you.
That's one of the hardest things, especially, you know, rock and roll. I think you can get away with being an asshole, you know,
at least at certain levels,
but I mean, in terms of corporate, and Brian knows because you know we work with each other a bunch, and you know I scout LinkedIn and all these places for freelancers all the time, and it's like you can recite every manual, be able to tune the PA amazing, be able to do all this stuff, but if you can't speak to my client on decent terms and not piss them off, like you're a representation of my brand, all this other stuff, like it's that is the one hard thing that even over a phone conversation with somebody, it's really, really difficult. I think I told a story on one of our episodes where it's like, you know, I was to the point of almost hiring somebody, and it got to a gig, and it wasn't until I saw him on the gig interact with people was like, whoa, all right, this is not gonna work out, you know. And yeah, the customer service is I mean, yes, it could be taught, but there has to be some inherent nature to you that is customer service oriented, regardless of the situation that you're in. You know, regardless of how shitty you might think the gig is or how long that day is. You know, it's like, look, just collect an easy paycheck right now and push this one fader up.
Right.
You know, and if somebody says like, oh, I can't hear in the back, you know, okay, you know, and do a little something for them. So yeah, it's
yeah. I've had a guy we were doing a funeral service, and the guy I was with was like a complete jerk to somebody from the family or something. They were asking for it to be louder, and he was such a jerk, and I just like stared at him, and then I just apologized for him and was like, yeah, we'll take care of that, no worries, I'll make sure that this gets louder. And I had to request that we never work together again, because it's like, not only is this the worst, you cannot talk to anybody like that at any time, but to speak to the family of somebody whose funeral we are at right now feels so tone deaf that there's no hope for you. Like I don't want to see you on one of my gigs again. So
no, and that's it's about the day I want to have. Their days are long, you know, they're hard work. There's enough to deal with as it is. I don't want to also have to deal with a jerk. I don't. So actually, I am going to now hand off my spot in the Brady Bunch thing here to my apprentice. Hannah is here. Chris, you can take me out.
Hey, Hannah.
If Joya hears that.
Hi, Hannah.
Hey, Hannah. Ooh, there's still babies in here. Now that Michael's gone.
Yeah, let's talk shit right now.
He has to just like hit the chat like everybody else.
So
he can't. He doesn't have Facebook.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to touch on that I thought was cool that I don't know if Willa or Samantha brought it up. We got a group text that goes on and we just shoot crap back and forth. But
tacos, food, you know.
Yeah, definitely talking about food. Everyone. Willa cooked a great chicken the other night. I saw that.
Did. Thank you.
It looked so good.
It was so delicious.
Samantha, you did good. And I see Chris's food all the time. But I'm going to tell you what. I get the best compliment. Everyone wants to come to my house for food. So that's
there you go.
I would ask you to make the 3.5-hour drive over to me.
I would. So building off of that, how is everybody's mental state right now? I know everybody's governor is kind of getting into that thing, and we've been staying away from talking about this virus and us being shut down for a long time. We talk about being nerds too much almost sometimes. I think it's time to address, hey, how's everybody doing? Like, are we doing okay? Is everyone good? No?
Crickets.
Hannah,
and there were crickets across the...
I'm feeling really lucky to be a student right now. I go to Hudson University. They have a communications program. So I'm feeling really lucky to stay busy with that because work's completely gone. And I live in Maine, so there's nothing here, to be blunt. But
beautiful outdoors. Come on now.
We have a lot of hiking, so that's good. I get to have fires out in my backyard and live in the country. That's good. But I'm lucky.
We have fires here in St. Louis too, but they're not legal.
Mine are legal, thankfully. But I'm lucky that I have schoolwork and things to keep me busy for at least another 2 weeks anyway. But See.
Willa, how's it going for you?
It's to be completely honest, it comes and goes in waves.
No domestic violence calls. You're good.
No. Yeah, my love is he's wonderful. But you know, it's I have not cried, or had not cried since this whole thing started, and I'm quite the emotional person. But I've been operating from a place of like denial and I want to say vengeance, because it's not quite anger. Since South by got canceled, and just kind of like a complete defiance of like, no, just because this is canceled doesn't mean that, you know, I'm done, you know. And I threw everything I had at the wall, and I tried to like, I got this close to coming up with like the most badass live streamed event, and then Shelter in Place got put down, and so we were unable to move forward with it for now. It's all for now. I keep trying to remind myself, but I had a moment a few days ago where I got up and I immediately burst into tears and couldn't stop for hours. And I ended up calling Samantha, and she, thank you, love you. She helped me through it. And my friend Becky helped me out a lot as well. And you know, it's a grieving process, and I finally hit that point of I'm just sad. I'm sad and I'm frustrated. So I will lose full days to depression, and I'm working really hard to move past that, thus the chicken, because I figure helping my soul with some food, you know, that's healthy and good, that gives my creative side something to fix onto. And excuse me, I'm shaking a little bit.
It's okay. It's good.
Everything is okay.
We've all been there.
You know, just working through it. And and I have an amazing support network through you guys, and through my friends Becky and Laura and Wesley, and through my love Andy, and my family. And, you know, we're moving through it a day at a time, and I'm just trying to take it slow and be gentle with myself. But today was a good day, you know, so trying to look at it that way.
No, I think it's I mean, all of the emotions you're experiencing are real, honest. I think to deny them, or to say they're not real, or to not face them will only do more damage than good.
Oh yeah.
Right? So, you know, I'm experiencing it from a different place. You know, I'm fortunately still employed. But you know, I've had to go through, you know, layoffs and furloughs and stuff at the company that I'm at. I'm obviously having to communicate with, you know, my freelancers, like Brian, who are, you know, going through this, and it pains me. You know, in different ways that pains you guys, who are on a freelance basis. But I mean, you know, I from a freelance standpoint, I feel for you guys so hard. Like it's, you know, it actually took me a little bit to actually reach out to some people, because it's like, well, what can I even offer? What can I even say? What is there that I can do? You know, I want to be there, I want to help, but like, there's legit nothing I can do, you know, other than just say, you know, hey, you know, hope you're all doing well. So it's that's, from this side, that's tough. And but I think the biggest thing is just expressing it, you know what I mean? And for me, even though I'm going through it in different ways, I look at it this way. I can control what I can control. I'm looking at things, you know, no more than a week out. You know, there's always so much planning you can do in these times. And so, you know, I go one day at a time, 1 week at a time. I stay away from the news as much as possisple. Because it just doesn't, you know, it doesn't help. But yeah, so that's but I feel for you, and I appreciate you, you know, sharing where you're at.
Samantha, next.
Things are going fine. You know, I'm almost hesitant to say that I'm, you know, it could be so much worse. So a part of me doesn't even want, like, I just want to stay silent, because there are other people doing worse than me, and it's like, why waste my breath? But exactly like you just said, Chris, you know, avoiding that anything is not gonna help. So It's good. Just like Willa said, it comes in waves at times, but you know, I am still getting paid, and I still, if anything, right now I'm busier than I was like 4 months ago because of so much of my work has become church stuff, and so it's just been a huge part of my life. So I'm fine. It's weird. It's different. I feel like I have a really great support system. So, you know, I have my family here and my dog, and we just get to, it almost doesn't feel weird because every June is my slow month. For churches, for most of my work, all my consulting, just June is like a dead month. So it just feels like I'm in really early June. So I've been able to switch over, but I'm about to enter into June after having been through all of this. And so we'll see how that goes. But, you know, again, I don't want to sit here and complain, but because I still have my job, just like you, Chris, and all that other good stuff. But yeah.
But you're not complaining though. You're you're expelling what you're going through, and what you are going through is real. And it's as real as what I'm going through. It's as real as what Chris and Kyle and Hannah and Brian are going through. We're all going through something just in different ways.
Yeah.
And it's
a very uncertain time for everybody, I think. And so even for those of us that still have jobs, it's like, you know, a week at a time. I have no idea what like 3 weeks from now is going to look like. Like that's forever in the future.
There's that fear of doom.
You had to remind me today was Monday.
Yeah. There's that fear of like, I might lose this. And that's incredibly draining and scary.
Yeah. Everything you've worked for. That's what it feels like. So on my worst days, it's like I could lose everything I've spent the last like 6 years building, or the last 8 years building, or the last 10 years building. Like it's like it feels like it could collapse. But it's just, part of it is just sort of having a little bit of faith that will, you know, I'll end up on the other side of this. And that's
going off of that real quick. Like, I'm still not out of school. I'm still not, I mean, I call myself a professional because I do work a lot while I'm in school, but like I graduate next year. Who knows what the industry is going to look like after all of this. I'm a little nervous about that, you know, and going into all of that. So those fears are real. But I'm lucky that I have things to occupy my time right now. So.
A lot of soldering.
So Brian, how about you? I know you've I know some of what you've kind of transitioned to, but what's this time been like for you?
Man, it's the, you know, it's the whole unknown thing. I can totally relate to good day, bad day, good day, bad day, good day, bad day. Mm-hmm. Today I was supposed to edit a video. I didn't even open Final Cut because it just didn't freaking happen. Just didn't freaking happen. You know, I got up in the morning and then I went back to bed because today was just not gonna happen. Like, so this has like been the highlight of my day. So thank you for that.
Yay, thanks for joining us.
Well, and that, you know, the thing is like, it's, you know, you talk about, oh man, losing everything up until that you've built up to this. Like, I'm at that point in my career where for all of the bad things that it connotates, I'm kind of coasting. You know, it's like I've built up all this reputation, I've built up all these skills, I've built up all this knowledge, kind of know how to do this particular thing well enough. Like, I'm already thinking retiring in, you know, 10 years or so, and how do I get there, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. Like, you know, what are we going to come back to? What is it going to be like? I'm officially the old dog. Like, can I learn another trick? I don't know if, you know.
Trick is not getting it for you old dogs. Just saying.
Right.
From what I read.
But it's like, so it's a completely different set of uncertainty, and yet exactly the same set of uncertainty. It's, you know, from just starting out, I'm still in school, and I don't know where I'm going to go because I thought I had a plan, to I'm a long ways away from school, but I thought I had a plan and I thought I knew what was going to happen. And, you know, it's like on a good day, then I tackle my projects, and I'm always like thinking about, you know, what's something else that I could do that I didn't have time to do before, or that I always wanted to do. I'm sorry.
Haberdashery.
Yeah. You know, I mean, honestly, including like this room was like put together just because the stupid virus happened. Like it was a junk room, and now it's a junk room with 3 guitars on the wall and a computer, but whatever.
I'm in the same situation.
Yeah, so it's like something, but no, I mean it's if there's any comfort in any of this, it's we're all going through the same thing. Like there's nobody that's got it figured out. It's not like, oh, I'm not here's the best way I can put it. Like, since I'm officially now the old guy in the room for at least another 13 seconds until I get booted off, and then Kyle can have the title back.
Thanks.
But there's no point at which you're like, I'm now so adult, I get it. Like, there's no point at which it just becomes, oh, now it's, oh, I don't have anything to worry about. Like, financially, I'm okay, even though I probably won't get paid for another year. But, through some very fortunate circumstances, I'm kind of okay there. But there's all the other things, like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What's it going to look like? I don't even know. Am I going to turn into a webcaster? No, I'm not looking at webcasting. That's Queen of Streaming is already taken. I can't take that title. Or whatever. I don't know. So it's yeah, and it's kind of day to day. So today is ending well, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So there was a reason behind me asking all this, and the reason is we did a podcast and we stored it in the can for. It'll probably be coming out soon. That's up to Chris and Michael. But we did a podcast with Courtney Clemson and Paul. And Paul used to do monitors for Justin Timberlake and The Roots, and he was also on Fallon. And I think our listeners out there are really going to enjoy it. They're opening a place called The Clinic, and it's basically help for roadies and people that work in the industry. Obviously, most of the help comes to the artists and not much for us who work behind the scenes. And that's what they're going to work on is setting up how we do our taxes. How do we do a retirement? How do we plan? What do we do? How do we 1099? Like, how do I deal with my wife and my kids at home or my significant other? Like, and I think this is going to be a beneficial thing. We definitely talk about a ton of nerdy stuff, and I enjoy every second of it. But at this time and place, I think there's a little bit of personal life that we need to get out there too, because a lot of us spend time covering it up instead of embracing it. And that's why I say it's okay. This shit sucks. This shit sucks for everybody in a different way, and it's totally okay that it sucks. It's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not to blame for it. It's okay to feel however you do. So I hope everyone's doing okay. Like Michael has said in other podcasts, if you guys need help or someone to talk to, whatever, reach out to us. You can reach me at signal2noisepodcast@gmail.com. You can find Chris and I on Facebook. You can find Samantha at Church Sound University. You can find Willa and everybody else. Reach out to somebody. You're okay. It sucks. Everything sucks right now. It's coming back. Like just today, May 4th, we might be able to go to non-essential businesses. We might be able to go back to our church service. We might be able to go back to the gym so I can do some damn squats.
Oh, I miss the gym.
I know. I got to do some damn squats or I'm going to it's going to be insane.
Running outside sucks.
So I want to make sure that every single one on this podcast and everyone who's watching or might listen in the future, it's okay to feel the way you feel.
Kyle, you know what? Something that that I've really enjoyed about all this. I mean, I've really spent time talking to people. Like Kyle, you and I talk like a couple times a month. We just talk on the phone just to see what's going on. And I hope that as we move forward and things resume more normal operations, I hope that, we as a group can maintain some of that. Because you really don't realize how busy you get until you go like, wow, that was nice. I just spent 20 minutes talking to Chris on the phone, or I just spent 20 minutes talking to Samantha on the phone. Like that's important that we do that. And I hope that as things go forward, we will continue to check in with each other. And really keep those human connections, because without that, to watch this industry kind of how it's reacted to this whole thing, a lot of industries, thank God I'm not in like corporate marketing or something, because it's just so cutthroat. Everyone really came together, and we had, our industry it was just amazing to watch all the stuff that people were doing to help each other. So I hope that, we don't become fair. It's just, as soon as everything's great again, it's like I don't want it to go back to normal. I still want people to call me just to say, hey, what's going on? Just to talk,
I'm gonna miss that's what I feel like I'm gonna miss the most, is the community that I have felt so much of in the last month. And
I really do think, I've sort of made any professional advances I've ever made just by calling someone up and just annoying the shit out of them with questions. That's literally how I made every professional connection I have. So I hope people will do that. I hope people will email us, and I hope you will reach out to my co-host and I, and you don't have to schedule a phone call with me. Just call me.
And I think Willa says it's the best. This is our instrument. This is the instrument that we play, and we play this instrument with our emotions. We do. No matter what we're doing, these are all parts of our emotions, and they're all fucking okay.
Yeah.
So if you got to cry, if you got to yell, if you got to walk away, if you need to hug somebody, if you need whatever you need to do during these times, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to definitely thank everybody who's been participating in our Facebook, watching our live events, listening to our podcasts, joining up with the streaming queen. And this is fun.
Where's my lower third? Hold on.
Yeah,
there we go.
This is super fun for us, and we're building community as we go too. It just started out as Michael and Keith, and I came on, and then Chris came on, and now it's like we can't do this without all of you, because if we could fit 24 little screens up here, I'd have all my friends on this thing talking shit right now, because it's fun and it makes us feel good and it makes us feel worth it, and that's all we got to do. So hopefully by May 4th, keep your distance, let's keep safe, still do safe stuff. It'll come back different, bigger and better. I love y'all. Check out the next podcast with Paul and Courtney.
Yeah, I was gonna say real quick before we go, Kyle, and Chris, I think you've got the schedule in front of you. Why don't we let everyone know what they can look forward to for the next couple episodes?
Man, put me on the spot here.
Hey, come on, man! You're the social media guru here.
One job.
No, we do have the Roadie Cares episode that should be coming out soon.
Oh my Lord! Look at that creature.
Okay, so sorry, you can take your time to get it all together. This is Willie Nelson.
Hi, Willie. Oh my goodness.
He is a hairless Chinese crested. So if you guys have ever seen the picture of the ugliest dog in the world, this is one of those.
Oh my gosh, that is wild.
Yeah, we also have the Chris Mitchell and Chris Raybold episode coming out. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Chris versus Chris, the death match.
Yeah,
that's going to be a blast. And Hannah and Eric, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, we kind of dig into recording schools and if they still matter, or if they do still matter, what are they doing to still matter, stuff like that. So that's what's in the near future. We're chugging along here. We appreciate all you guys. You guys are people who are watching right now. Everybody's in the Facebook group.
Can we do a golf clap appreciation?
Golf clap.
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah. Please
hey,
keep
Potter. Where's your little hands?
Oh yeah, I've got them right there.
Oh. We've been on here for an hour and a half, and this is the first time they come out.
I'm sorry, I forgot about it.
But I've been plugging your damn show the entire time, and you just now bring out the hands.
I'm sorry.
If anybody has any suggestions for guests, or if you guys want to come on the show, remember, email signal 2 noispodcast@gmail.com. That goes directly to me, so you can make fun of me making fun of Yamaha EQ or whatever you want to do. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, and I didn't do that right.
Oh, Chris.
It was such a good movie ending.
This is why we practice.
Yes, I was trying to. Oh man.
Welcome to the show.
Oh,
Potter
wow.
will sing us out with her tiny hands while Chris figures out how to.
Down, jazz hands, yeah. do bow, yeah.
Stand by. There we go.
I've been trying to find my Rhodey Randy hair the whole episode. That's why I was running around.
This is what I was trying to with. See you later. Take care.
Take care.